Oh my goodness! I left the stove on, the church is on fire! Hey everyone, welcome to my Pastor Paul update. Today's a special update because I'm going to do a Pastor Paul cooking show just for you because we're in that celebrative mode here at St. Mark's. Not only is it a new year, but we have our annual celebration coming up February 6th. Now that's our annual meeting, and yes, we do some voting and things like that, but it's a celebration of what God has done for us. And here we find ourselves again in 2022 facing down a spike in COVID. So we're not going to have as big of a celebration as we would like with tons of food and all kinds of parties and things like that. But with that spirit in mind, when I think of celebration, I think of pie. Now I know that's weird, but I think of pie. And it has something to do with this upcoming Sunday sermon, and it has something to do with our celebration. And so today I'm going to make for you a pie. Check it out. Here we go. I don't know how many of you have enjoyed your grandma's pie before, but my grandma, my mom's mom, she made the best pies. In fact, they were so good. Let me just tell you a story. There was a local shop in the town where she lived, where my grandpa and grandma lived, and the pie maker there went on vacation. So they asked my grandma to come in and make some pies for the week and a half that she was gone. Well, by the end of the week and a half, they wanted my grandma to keep on making the pies and for the other person just to stay at home. That's how good her pies were. And I remember going up to Minnesota as a kid, and we would always look forward to her pies. Lemon meringue pie, banana cream pie, coconut cream pie, you name it. She made it all, and as a family, we would just devour those pies. Well, when I was in college, along many of the stops that I made in college, one of them was Concordia University, St. Paul, Minnesota. And my grandpa by that point had passed away, and as I was finishing up school, my undergrad, I went to visit my grandma for a weekend just to learn how to make pies. And so I'm going to share with you today my grandma's pie recipes that have been handed down from my grandma to my mom and to me and my siblings. And so I'm going to start off by just telling you the three ingredients that you need for what I'm going to make today, a lemon meringue pie. The three parts, I should say, of what you need for a lemon meringue pie. First of all, probably the most crucial part is the crust. I'm going to tell you how to make the crust. Second of all is the lemon filling. I'm going to give you the recipe for that. And then third, we're going to make the meringue together. I'll give you the recipe for that. I have already pre-made some things, so I'm not going to make it all here, but I'm going to give you the ingredients to start off with. So get your pen and paper ready, write this down. Do you remember these old note cards that we used to use for recipes? These are literally from my grandma's apartment complex many, many years ago. So this is grandma's pie crust. This is what you're going to need. All great pie crusts have lard. They have lard. You're going to need 1 cup of lard. You're going to need 1 cup of CRISCO. So not the liquid kind, but you know, the solid shortening kind. 1 cup of CRISCO. You need a teaspoon of salt. You're going to need 5.5 cups of flour. You're going to need 1 egg, and you're going to need a tablespoon of vinegar. And you're basically just going to mix all of that together. Save the egg towards the end, add a little flour. If you need a little water, you can add that as well, but you're going to put that all together, mix it in a mixing bowl. You're going to find that it's going to turn out really, really nice. That's your ingredient list for the pie. Like I said, for the pie crust, like I said, I've already made it. And what's great about this is that recipe that I just gave you makes 5 to 6 pie crusts. Depending on how big your pie pans are, things like that. And they keep really well. So you say, what am I going to do with 5 to 6 pie crusts? Well, what I do is I ball them up, divide it up into 5 or 6, maybe 5 with just a tiny one. Then I just put some cellophane around it, put it in a plastic bag, put it in the freezer. They freeze for a long time. My grandma used to do this all the time because when she knew that the Hennings family was coming into town, she had to have lots of pies. So I already made the pie crust. We'll work on that in just a minute. So that's Grandma's pie crust. That's what you're gonna need for those pie crusts. Now for the lemon filling, for the pie filling, this is what you're gonna need. You're gonna need 1 3/4 cup of water. You're gonna need 1 1/2 cup of white sugar. You're gonna need 1/3 cup of cornstarch. You're gonna need just a little bit of salt. 2 to 3 lemons, depending on how much juice is in them. You're gonna need 1/2 teaspoon of grated lemon rind, about 1/3 cup of lemon juice from the lemons, and then you're gonna need 3 egg yolks. Okay, not the whole egg, just the yolks. And then just a teeny bit of butter if you want to add that to the recipe. So that's what you need for the lemon pie filling. And then finally, you're going to take the 3 egg whites. You already got rid of the egg yolks for the pie filling. You're going to take the 3 egg whites. You need 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar, and you need 1/3 cup of white sugar. All right, so that's your meringue recipe. Just those 3 things: 3 egg whites, 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar, and 1/3 cup of white sugar. All right, every good pie crust starts with good ingredients. Now, I'm just gonna give you some of my preferences. This is actually something I found recently. It's the organic version of all-purpose flour from Target. This really bakes up well. I don't know why. I saw some reviews, so I figured I'd try it out, and the organic version of Target's all-purpose flour is really quite exceptional. It really makes good rising things. And so I use this in my pie crust. You can use whatever you want. I mean, my grandma, I think, used gold medal her entire life, but you know, you can use whatever you want. Pie crusts are finicky, and they're not the easiest thing in the world because it all depends on how much humidity you've got in the air and other things like that. So you're gonna need a rolling pin. We're gonna put some flour on your countertop, and we're gonna roll this baby out. You can be generous with the flour. The pie crust that I made, the recipe I gave you, can take more flour into it. You're not gonna ruin it. So just keep that in mind. You can be generous because you don't want this whole thing sticking. Now, before I do all this, I want you to know that this doesn't always work out the first time. So that's just how it goes. Here we go. Oh no, see? And I broke it. I broke it. So what do we do when we break it? We start over. That's what we do. We start over, and it's okay. Like I said, this takes plenty of flour. Obviously, we can't go forever with the flour, but if we make a mistake, we start over. By the way, if you ever get angry at life, you can always beat the heck out of your pie crust, okay? It's actually quite soothing. It's much like beating dough that you're making, if you're making bread. It's quite soothing. So, got our flour here. All right, let's try this again. While I'm doing this, I'd sure love to know, I'm gonna repeat this at the end, I'd sure love to know your stories with your grandma in baking, if you have any of those stories. My grandma passed away probably about, I don't know, about 3 or 4 years after I went to visit her. And basically that weekend we made about, I think we made about 6 pies together. We did not eat all of them. I don't even know what she did with them, to be honest. Maybe she gave them some friends. But we did not eat all of them, but we made a bunch. She gave me my certificate of pie making. I'm gonna try not to mess this up again. All right. 1, 2, 3. There we go. All right. So what you want to do is you want to take that pie crust and just make sure it gets all the way to the bottom. You'll see you have a nice little edge here. There you go. See, nice pie crust here. First thing you're gonna do is you're gonna fold up the edges of the pie crust. So you're just gonna mound them, and we're gonna crimp the whole thing to make it look nice. And for those of you with smaller fingers than mine, you're gonna make your pie look a lot better than my edges, because my fingers are, well, they're bigger, so they don't crimp as well. Crimping is the practice of basically squeezing and making little edges for your pie. This is, putting your thumb together with your two fingers. This is how my grandma taught me to crimp, but you can do it however you want to. But you want to basically make sure that pie crust is nice and tight on the edge of the pie pan. Now, when you're making lemon meringue pie, what's really important is we're gonna bake this pie crust before we actually put the pie together. And what you're gonna wanna do to prevent it from creating any bubbles is just poke some holes in it, because you're gonna crisp it up, especially along the edges. This is where sometimes you can get some bubbles in there. So once you've done that, you've got your pie crust. It looks like this. You're gonna bake it in the oven, 375. Let me see here, make sure I got this right. I think it's 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. And so it's not gonna become this dark golden brown, it's gonna be a light brown. We're gonna put this in the oven, and while it's cooking, while it's baking, we're gonna make some lemon pie filling. We're gonna make the lemon pie filling now, and what you're gonna wanna do is get your 1 3/4 cup of water boiling, start that up. Now, you need to know some special tricks to the trade here. By the way, just a plug for C&H sugar. I think it actually is granulated better. It's gonna work particularly well for a meringue, but in this situation, it's not totally important, but I do like C&H sugar. You're gonna take your 1 1/2 cups of sugar, and you're gonna mix it with your cornstarch, 1/3 cup of cornstarch. Now this is very important. You want to mix this up really good so that it's all mixed together, because as soon as you put that into the boiling water, it's going to want to burn if you don't have it mixed. And so again, mix this up real good. Now the point of this is we're going to boil this water, but as soon as we dump this in, we're going to reduce the heat to half. What we're trying to do here is basically just make you're making a pie filling. So it's going to get thick, it's going to congeal. So that's what we're going to work on. So this is nice and mixed together. It'll go into the boiling water pretty well. All right, so you've mixed those two things together. Some other prep things that you need to do as well is we need to separate our eggs, our egg yolk and our egg whites. Now, this is another little trick to the trade here. Once we separate the egg whites, we're going to put the egg whites in the fridge. You want them to be cold when you make the meringue out of them. It just helps out. So we're going to separate the eggs, the egg whites. We're going to put them in this bowl, and then we're going to put them in the fridge. Dump the egg yolks into whatever you want. Dish another bowl. You're going to dump those egg yolks into the filling here in just a second. Almost done here. I'm going to make sure that this is ready to go. All right, remember we want that water boiling. All right, I'm going to give my egg whites to my handy dandy assistant behind the camera so he can put them into the fridge. Thanks, Joel. All right, the other thing we want to prepare beforehand is our lemon juice and our lemon rind. Remember, we want about 1/3 cup of lemon juice and a lemon rind. I've already done that, so it usually takes about 2 lemons. That's what I have found, but you're going to put that in here at the end. So my water is boiling, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dump in my mixture of sugar, a little bit of salt, and the cornstarch. And so here we go. We're going to put this together. And immediately we're going to start mixing. We do not want this to burn. And so we're also going to put down the heat just about halfway. So whatever that's like on your oven, just about halfway. And I'm literally going to stand on top of this the whole time, When you're making banana cream pie, this is even more important because the milk burns faster. Well, we're just going to keep this spinning. Like I said, you want to go about half the heat that you were before. You're going to notice that this is going to continue to congeal and become more like a pudding. And so it's going to also bubble while it's doing that, but you're going to have to give it some time. Sometimes it can take up to 10 minutes here that you're just stirring this, and you just want it to congeal. It should look white and creamy, and once it starts congealing, we'll add the egg yolks. So we'll be back in just a second. All right, you're going to see that this has become congealed pretty good. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the egg yolks in here, and we're going to keep on mixing. This is what actually gives your lemon pie filling its lemon color. I always thought as a kid it was because all the lemon juice that was in there, but it's actually the egg yolk that gives it the color. So we're going to mix that in there, and at about this point you can start taking it off the heat. You don't need to keep the heat going the whole time. You will be able to rest it a little bit, and once that egg yolk is in there pretty good, again, we want a really good congealed substance here. Once it looks like this, then we can go ahead and add in the lemon juice and rind here. Just make sure it's off of the heat at this point. So it'll congeal on its own as it sits. So we're just going to mix this in there. And here's just a key for you to note with your pie filling. You really want to let it cool pretty good before you put it in your pie, because you're going to heat the pie up anyways. And if you don't let it cool, then it becomes a little runny. So we're going to let it cool a little bit. If you're in a hurry, you can stick it in the fridge to let it cool. That's not always advisable, but this is basically what it should look like. So there's your pie filling there. We're going to let it sit, let it cool. This is what it looks like. You just dump the filling into the pie crust. That's not very complicated at all, but this next part is always the tricky part. This is the part that I actually, worry about. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take, remember, our egg whites that we put in the refrigerator, so it should be nice and cold, and we're gonna beat them and beat them and beat them. We want them to fluff up and get all fluffy for us. When that happens, we're gonna add a little bit of cream of tartar that's in the recipe, and then we're gonna slowly add the sugar. Do not dump in your sugar and your cream of tartar right away. It won't fluff up like it's supposed to. So, get a mixer, go to high, and just take your time. And this is gonna be a while. So we're not gonna make you listen to this the whole time. We'll come back here in just a second when this gets nice and fluffy. All right, so we have beaten this pretty good. You can kind of see the texture now. What I'm gonna do, and you can go even farther than this, but you can go too far with this. So that's the trick here. You want it to be a little firm, but if you go too far, then you're just gonna beat it into nothing. So you kind of have to be careful. What we're gonna do is I'm just gonna put in the cream of tartar here, and then we're gonna slowly put in the sugar, so you're gonna have to listen to me beating this some more, but we're just gonna keep on beating it on high. And then we're going to slowly put in the sugar, because we want to keep the firm aspect of the meringue. But we want to add some sweetener to it. Meringue without sugar is gross. I know this, because I've done that before. We're going to keep on doing this. All right. So your meringue should be nice and solid like this. Should be able to be formed. Now, I can tell you right now that this is not probably as formed as I'd like it to be, but it'll work. What you're gonna do is you're gonna put it on top of your pie here, and you spread it out. You wanna make sure that your oven is still at 375, or put it back to 375, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna bake this for about, 8 to 10 more minutes. When you bake this part, it's really just kind of eyeballing your meringue. You can easily burn the meringue, so you don't want to do that, but you don't also want to undercook it. You're going to spread the meringue out all around. That's the first thing you do. You can see this is nice. It's worked out pretty well. I'm going to get it to the edges of your pie crust. Cover all of that pie filling. All right, then if you have a spatula or whatever you're using, what you want to do is you want to just kind of fluff up a little bit of it. And so make some peaks along the way. Again, this is really your preference. I don't make too many peaks because I don't like to burn it. But you just basically are making peaks in your pie to make it look nice. If you ever ask my mom, she'll tell you that I'm a person that I don't really care how the food looks necessarily. I just want it to taste good. That is why I'm not a professional chef. All right, so we've got our pie here. We're going to throw it in the oven for 8 to 10 minutes, 375, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I brought a bunch of pie tasters. We've divided up the lemon meringue pie, and let's dig in. Grandma's lemon meringue pie.
Grandma's are the best.
That's good.
Oh yeah. Very good, Paul.
Well, that's still warm.
Yeah.
It's best when it's warm, yeah.
That's good.
That crust just melts in your mouth.
That crust is good, yeah.
I don't even really like pie, but this is good.
Thanks, Bailey.
What a review.
How convenient.
Actually eat it.
How
She's like, I don't
convenient.
like it if she finishes.
I really don't like it. I'm really not a big pie eater, but this is pretty good.
Don't you think it would go good with coffee?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, coffee.
I thought you didn't make us some coffee.
Well, I should have. I watched my grandpa would just sit in his rocking chair and eat this pie and coffee, and I didn't drink coffee when I was a kid, but it's pretty good. So, all right, so why did I make pie today? Because I'm gonna talk about your pie this Sunday, because we're talking about money, and so you're gonna get to watch people eat some pie on Sunday morning, so we don't want you to miss it. So check it out this Sunday, either in person or online. And then my last thing is this, since we're talking about grandparents and grandmas, things like that, what are your favorite memories of your grandparents? Submit those online. Facebook, you can submit them there. You can email me, whatever you'd like to do. Just love to know your favorite memories with your grandparents, especially the cooking ones. All right, that's it, everybody. Enjoy your pie.
Thank you.
Bye.